Let's talk about it. Episode 1, the future of American horse shows. And welcome to our very first episode of Let's Talk About It. I'm Ellie Morris, also known as the Equestrian Economist. And if you're wondering what that means, it comes from the way I've spent my life. I am a third-generation horsewoman who's been involved in the sport for more than 25 years now, and professionally, my background is in finance, business strategy, and organizational transformation. I've spent my career helping organizations solve complex problems, evaluate long-term sustainability, and make decisions using data rather than emotions. This series is where those two worlds meet. It isn't about controversy for controversy's sake. It isn't about criticizing organizations or individuals. And it certainly isn't about pretending I have all the answers. It's about asking better questions. Because I generally believe the equestrian industry is one of the most remarkable sports in the world. But I also believe it's at a crossroads, and the conversations we have today will shape what this sport looks like 20 years from now. And today I want to break in with one of the biggest topics I can think of, and one that serves as a follow-up to my article of the same name, The Future of American Horse Shows, which was published last week by Horse Network. The response to that has been incredible. It sparked thoughtful conversations, challenged assumptions, and reminded me just how passionate people are about the future of our sport. So today, I want to take that conversation a step future and delve into it even more. And now, before anyone rushes to the comments, this isn't an attack on anyone. Many of the changes we've seen over the past 2 decades have been incredibly positive. Facilities have improved, horse welfare has improved, technology has improved, and I'd like to say professionalism has improved. Operations as well, we know, has improved. But progress doesn't mean we stop asking questions. In fact, progress requires us to start asking even better ones. So let's talk about it. And the first topic today is looking back. So to understand where we're going, we first have to understand where we've been. I grew up showing horses during that era that many people would refer to as the golden age of American horse shows. Every region had incredible competitions. You looked forward to your local circuit. You qualified for your local medal finals, and going to indoors was legendary. So communities rallied around their horse shows, and families spent the entire summer traveling from venue to venue. The horse show wasn't simply where you competed. It became part of your identity, because you knew the people working the in-gate, you knew all the vendors, all the trainers knew one another from multiple generations, and the kids all grew up together. And on top of it too, the parents usually became lifelong friends, and those horse shows helped define entire communities. And that's important, because horse shows have never just been about horses. They've always been about people. And that brings me to my next topic. Horse shows are businesses. One thing I don't think we discuss enough is that horse shows are businesses. They sometimes, in the equestrian world, we act like economics somehow don't apply to us, but it absolutely does. Every horse show has revenue. They have expenses, employees, sponsors, capital investments. Then factor in the marketing, customer acquisitions, getting new people in the door, and then on top of it, retaining them in your retention rate. And then the competition itself is a secondary factor. And like every industry, the difference is that our product happens to involve horses. And that's why I tend to analyze horse shows differently than many people do. When I look at a horse show, I don't just see the jumps and the prize lists. I see an economic ecosystem, which is our next topic. So the economics of a horse show. Think about everything that happens when a major horse show comes to town. The hotels fill up. The restaurants get busier. You better have a reservation. Gas stations sell more fuel. Trucks and trailers take a lot of that. Local grocery stores benefit. Imagine the apples and the carrots that they bring in. Veterinarians gain work, farriers get booked, and feed suppliers will deliver more inventory. Shavings companies will increase production as well. I mean, then you have to factor in the infrastructure, the tent companies, the electricians, the internet providers, and then the service providers like photographers, videographers, security companies, which is kind of necessary now, cleaning crews for biosecurity, golf cart rentals, because God forbid we ever walk a mile, and portable restroom companies, which are much better now than the old porta potties. And then you have VIP, flower suppliers, hospitality vendors, caterers, transportation companies. Every single one of those businesses participate in the horse show economy. The economic impact stretches far beyond the end gate. And when horse shows thrive, entire communities benefit. That's one reason I believe measuring economic impact correctly is so important, because we don't understand the value horse shows create. We can't make informed decisions about their future if we don't understand the numbers. Which brings me to my next topic, consolidation. Over the past 20 years, we've watched consolidation reshape American horse showing. Many premier venues now operate under larger ownership groups, and that has created tremendous advantage. I mean, facilities have dramatically improved, consistency has improved, investments have increased, and the operations have become more professional, which has overall created an improved customer experience. And those are real accomplishments. But every business model creates incentives. If you own multiple venues, naturally you want exhibitors competing within your network. And again, that's not criticism, that is just business. The question becomes whether our competitive structure still creates room for independent regional horse shows to flourish alongside those premier destinations. And like I said, I don't always know the answer, but I think it's a question worth asking, because the next topic is the prestige. People follow the prestige. Horse people are competitive. We all want to compete where the best competition exists. We want the biggest classes, the best footing, the most prestigious championships, the highest prize money, and the best experience. And that's just human nature, naturally. But markets respond to behavior. As competitions concentrate in fewer locations, prestige therefore becomes concentrated too. Sponsors follow the prestige, the media follows the prestige, and investment as well. Eventually, exhibitors follow all of them. It's a cycle, and that's not a conspiracy. That is just economics 101, who is fueling the economics of the sport? That's the next topic to cover. The amateur is the customer. And here's one of the most important ideas I'd like people to think about. Professionals are absolutely essential to our industry, but economically, it's the amateur who is the customer. It's parents, adult amateurs, owners, families. They are purchasing the horses. They're paying for the training bills. They're actually usually the ones buying the trucks, buying the trailers, booking the hotels, buying tack once they're actually at the horse show, feeding the system, as well as clothing, and paying their entries while supporting the sponsors, because that's why they're all there anyway, for the prestige. So without amateurs, the entire economic engine just stops. And that means understanding the amateur experience isn't simply good customer service, it's just good business. Which brings me to my favorite topic of the day, Bill Maroney's analogy. One comment from his Nancy Jaffer interview that has stuck with me was that he compared different parts of the industry to Walmart and Neiman Marcus. And I think that's actually an incredibly useful analogy. Luxury experiences aren't bad, neither are affordable ones. Both industries, all healthy industries need that. Yeah. Formula One still has karting, the PGA still has municipal golf courses, ski resorts, though far and few between, still have local hills. And every successful sport builds a ladder. The question is whether our ladder remains strong enough for new families entering equestrian sport, because today's lead line rider is tomorrow's Grand Prix rider. Hate to break it to you, Bill, but I digress. Really, it's about the globalization, which is our next topic, and that is not going away. Horse sport has become increasingly international. Horse transportation has become incredibly sophisticated. Sponsors are thinking globally because breeding is global, competition is global, and if anything, the Olympics remind us of that every 4 years. And globalization brings opportunity, but it also creates pressure. American horse shows aren't just competing against other American horse shows anymore. They're competing within an international marketplace for horses, sponsors, athletes, and investment. And that changes everything, because the way we actually look at all these numbers is via data, which is the next topic. So one of my biggest frustrations isn't necessarily the decisions being made. It's that we don't have enough of public data to evaluate them. I'd love to see more transparency around participation trends, member demographics, youth retention, and economic impact, because horse ownership, regional participation, operational costs, customer satisfaction are all relevant currently, because strategy without data just becomes opinion. And opinion alone rarely produces the best outcomes. So this isn't about blame. Whenever conversations like this happen, people immediately want to assign blame. And I don't think that's productive, because markets evolve, technology changes, consumer expectations change, and organizations adapt. And I'll say it, the equestrian industry has always evolved. The question isn't whether change happens. The question is whether we're intentional about it. And that's why I'm having these conversations, because some people may wonder, why am I even talking about this? And the answer is pretty simple. It's because I love this sport. I want my 3 children to experience the same opportunities I had. And I want local horse shows to survive and thrive. I want premier venues to thrive. I want professionals, new or old in the industry, to succeed. I want amateurs, again, new or old, to feel welcome. And I want governing organizations to succeed. Those goals don't have to compete with one another. If anything, they're dependent on one another. So questions I'd like us to all think about until next week. How do we strengthen regional horse shows? How do we continue supporting world-class competition? How do we reduce financial barriers to entry? How do we grow participation, and how do we measure success? And lastly, how do we use data to make better decisions? Because to ensure horse showing remains economically sustainable for the next generation, I think that's kind of where we're at. And if those are questions I'm going to be touching on through the rest of this series, probably. And if you've made it this far, whether you spent 50 years in the sport or just discovering it, I appreciate you being willing to think critically alongside me, because you don't have to agree with everything I say. In fact, I'm hoping sometimes you don't, honestly, because respectful disagreement is how better ideas emerge. And if this conversation sparked a thought, leave it in the comments. If there's another topic you'd like me to tackle specifically, let me know. And if you've enjoyed today's discussion, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe and follow along as we continue exploring the industry and its future. Because I'm Ellie Morris, aka the Equestrian Economist, and thank you for joining me on the very first episode of Let's Talk About It. Because these are conversations worth having. Bye.